G'day everyone, it's Shredded Nerd here. We are back again for the Infinite Show. I'm joined by...
Leipolard and the Sar, dudes. It's been a bit of a while, eh?
It's been a while, yeah. This is Footed Ghost. I can't remember the last time we sat down and recorded, to be honest. Let's see how we go. It should be interesting.
Been a while, but glad to be back, yeah. And we are joined by very special guests today.
Kia ora. I'm Neo from New Zealand. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I was told there would be conversations to be had.
And I'm John from America, and I guess since Nerd said we're special, I guess that's pretty self-descriptive.
So I guess if you could describe what you did, I guess, on Digsite.
Something.
On the broad level was your role.
No, yeah, Neo, talk about your funny sound stuff.
Oh, hell yeah. All right. Yeah, well, I do all things audio. Digsite is essentially this really cool... it's kind of official, unofficial. It's effectively official, but it's basically... There's a couple of people at 343 that sort of oversee and kind of, guide the direction of like just where everything is moving within the project. And they're also the ones that find all of the source material for the most part. These handful of 343 folks, in collaboration with a selection of people from the Halo modding community, we basically work together to essentially dig through all of these old archives of materials that go way back to 1998. Just all of this old material on Halo that's cut content, unfinished content, pre-release stuff, iterations and revisions of content that made it into the final games, but they may have been significantly changed between, whatever we find and whatever we got to play years and years ago. Basically, this whole playground and sandbox of all of these old just assets and stuff to go through. And I think the general idea is that that's kind of together we go through. The 343 guys will let us know when they find cool stuff that they send our way. We basically have an opportunity to touch them up, have a look and see if there's, kind of anything that would sort of make them, be seen in the public eye as like broken or incomplete. Kind of give them a nice coat of polish. Basically refurbish all of these old assets to bring them up to...
Yeah, it's like restore, remix, or recreate pretty much, depending. Because like in your case, Neo's the guy who does sound for Digsite, and in the case of how sound is a legal mess, and I won't go into US copyright rules because that's its own like 2-day long conversation, we can't release some of these sounds. Reasons being could be varied, kind of doesn't really matter. It's just kind of safer to not release any of the sounds for a lot of this stuff.
Pretty much.
But, like, good example would be, like, they get placeholder, like, voiceover, right? For, like, a mission or something. They might not have actually had, like, a proper contract for whoever did the placeholder voiceover, right? We can't release that. That's going to be illegal. They didn't sign anything. There's no, like, rights attached to it. We would maybe need to re-record that. Another example would be something like gun sounds, which Neo did a plenty amount of.
Bang.
But like a lot of those will come from sound libraries that may or may not be like properly licensed by 343 at the moment. Meanwhile, anything Neo creates is new and original by him kind of deal. So
yeah, sound's been a funky territory where I've been in the kind of slightly different position compared to everyone else. Basically, in my case, I basically am designing everything from scratch, brand new. In a lot of cases, we have some audio that was very clearly a placeholder. So, like, there's a lot of stuff that had sounds, but they're the kind of thing where you'd hear that and you'd be like, oh yeah, this is just here so we have something now, and then we would come back and do another pass on it later. And so, for a lot of my stuff on Digsite directly, if there was any existing material, I kind of take that as inspiration or into account while working on something new. But basically, my approach has been to design something new that, has kind of a character or personality to it that feels in line with all of the material that did release for whatever that game was. So, in the case of Gunfire, my objective at the end of the day is, I'm going to make new gun sounds, but they're going to feel like something that was in Halo 1 all this time. And they were just never heard before, but they should feel like they've always been there. In everyone else's case, though, since everyone else is working with, kind of assets that already existed in these archives, they get to do the fun coda polish and touch-ups, and in a lot of cases, actually, John, for example, did a really great job of basically completely just reimagining a bunch of old Gearbox multiplayer maps that never kind of made it to the finish line. But yeah, so Digsite is basically bringing all the stuff up to, new retail quality standards. And then I think internally the idea is it kind of goes in their new updated archives, and that's a new pool of resources they can look at when they're going to like develop or work on new ideas continuing within Halo. And now they have this library of all this extra cool, basically quote-unquote finished assets from the work we do together on Digsite between 343i and then the modders that are involved on that project.
Yeah, and then like stuff that we don't even like remaster, like let's say when the GitHub eventually goes out, right? There will be some stuff that's just not as polished, but should just get out there for people. Part of it is like, historical archive, which archive goes both ways. It's cool for the community, kind of useful for 343 to get to do a little bit of house cleaning, right? On the other hand of it too, though, like us modders are still helpful in that case because a lot of times like we are kind of sorting through garbage or cleaning up garbage, because like the best way I can put it is there might be a test map that is like, that sounds really cool for like the file name, and then you open it and it's a cube. There's nothing else. It's just a cube. Other things are just like, again, cleaning house. Like here's a good example of something I did with the most recent Digsite release. So part of what we have to do is just transferring like file formats to stuff the community can kind of easier use. The
ancient Mac stuff.
Well, most of it wasn't too ancient for people, but like
some of it
I hate to put it this way, most of the modding community does not have 3ds Max. If you do, congrats with your torrent, student license, or like $1,000 a year subscription. Have fun with that.
Yeah,
right.
There's a couple of fun examples on.
You would be surprised.
There's a very, very, very small selection of audio stuff I've had to look at. Mostly because, like, for about 99% of things, there just actually isn't audio stuff there at all. Like, there's just nothing there. But I have had a couple of cases where it's been cool, and I've gotten to work with a couple of the other folks on Digsite on basically identifying like, oh yeah, this is an old audio format that was used in like the late 80s and early 90s for like the Macintosh, and then kind of working to like, help sort of make that information available. And here's what this file format is. Here's everything you need to know to like work with that in the modern day, whether that's like reading it directly or converting it to like another format that's more easily usable. I think there's a big case where I don't know how much of this translates to like the other parts of Digsite, but especially with some of this audio stuff, a lot of these file formats only apply to audio, and so a lot of that kind of knowledge of that stuff I think has just been lost to time.
Not as hard for the other stuff, but like I have old version of Photoshop in case if I need it, and like half of us have old versions of 3ds Max. Like a lot of the original Halo games would have been done between like 3ds Max 5 and 3ds Max like
7 or 8 or something.
7
Yeah.
or 8. I have like 3ds Max 8 with a few plugins, and so does some of the other Digsite members. And some of that's pretty useful.
The current or newest version?
Well, the current version is like they did the Adobe thing where they stopped like numbering it, and it's just a year. Yeah, so like if we're going by like the actual version count at this point, it's like probably like 20 something.
Okay, so ages.
Yeah, we're talking like ancient like software versions of 3ds Max. So, but like a lot of the original source files are in those old Max files, and we transfer a bunch of those to usable files now, which in this case would be a mixture of compiled files for just throwing into the Halo engine and .blend files to use with Blender, since most of the community tools are now made around Blender, and Blender is free and open source and all that fun stuff that people like to talk about. So most of the community's on Blender. A lot of the model files are available as .blends with the Digsite project for that reason. When it comes to images, they're all thrown into the .tiff format because that just natively compiles into Halo nice and easily, and can save layers, so that way people don't need to own Photoshop to open, like, let's say an old source texture that has like 50 layers, right? That kind of stuff. So, you know, that kind of cleanup is needed. So like, even if something is very incomplete and we're not like remastering it all the way, we still need to kind of go through it to just make sure it's kosher to release and all that. So that is like a big part of Digsite as well.
I mean, I can probably really here, I'm mainly speaking for the people I worked directly with on Digsite, which is John. We've got a couple of other people that were really big and integral to some of the Halo 1 stuff we worked on for R1. Sean T, Scruffy, and Killzone. I know for a lot of us, you know, we grew up playing the Halo games, among many others. And so, you know, they're very big inspirations for us, I think, design-wise, in, you know, just the process of game production. And so another thing that's been a really cool opportunity with Digsite is having the ability to go through all these old archives of stuff and actually getting to see how a lot of the stuff was just made, and getting this actually, you know, get an internal look at the development and production like process for a lot of these materials.
Yeah, that's like way more interesting than the actual assets itself, at least for like me. Like for like being into like 3D art and all that kind of stuff, and just digital art in general, it was very interesting to be able to open like a texture file. And it's not just like, oh, I'm looking at a texture that's used in the game, right? Oh no, I'm seeing each individual layer in Photoshop, like what they use for like painting, what's like photo bashed. I get to break down that texture now and see the process that like what probably was done by like Paul Russell, like literally 20 years ago kind of deal. And it's just kind of cool to be able to almost like re-walk the steps of like stuff that we just kind of grew up with, you know, like we got to see now like the creative process on a sort of first-hand, or I guess second, would it be second-hand at this point, just because we're so far detached from when Halo was actually made? Either way, we get to see a really weird personal way.
Yeah, you've died, you've yet to respawn, and you're like spectating them as they're running around in a Halo match kind of thing. you see what they're doing, but yeah, I mean, in music, in at least where audio was concerned, that wasn't really part of that, unfortunately. But in a large case, I think that's been really cool, is to actually get a better understanding on a more intimate level of just how a lot of the stuff that, you know, I think we all are personally really inspired by, and get to see kind of the more intricate details of that to learn from, you know, to kind of better develop our own processes for doing things. But also, I think it's really interesting and neat to be able to just compare that to the way we've already worked on things, or just the way we do things today, versus, you know, how a lot of that stuff was done 20 years ago. I think it's really interesting to see how far and different a lot of things have evolved since then.
In regards to how stuff was done 20 years ago, I'm going to nerd out for a little bit here, Neo, because I do want to talk to you about the music that you did for Crash Site, of which it was incredible. There is no other composer who I have heard who is able to get the, like, that classic Halo vibe, and for lack of a better word, the Marty and Michaelisms of you know, the original trilogy of Halo soundtracks. What do you think is the most important element of Halo's music? What do you think it is that makes it stand out from the vast sea of other video game soundtracks?
This is probably a bit of a cop-out answer, especially because it kind of goes, it sort of evolves a little bit with each game, you know, especially since each game is kind of a product of its time. I mean, you know, we're spanning multiple console generations, and also technology, and probably just the way people designed things, you know, changed as you know, all the staff at Bungie kind of grew and worked on more projects and started to kind of evolve more how they wanted to do things. But I think one of the most significant things of the sound of Halo is how signature it is in a sound that is uniquely identifiable from a sea of thousands or millions of other kinds of sounds. Yet somehow, at the same time, it's also probably one of the most successful fusions of multiple just genres of music from everywhere across the board. I mean, you know, obviously there's a lot of orchestral stuff in there, so, you know, a lot of influences go back to, you know, classical music and I think a lot of things that have a much more kind of emotional core at them. But then that's also intertwined with, everything from rock music to synthesizers, and, obviously with Halo 2, they got to have a lot of fun with bringing in guest artists as well. So you have more than just those two minds working on things. And, especially on Halo 3 onwards, you also had some of the other people in the audio team composing and producing some of that music. I know C. Paul Johnson, I hope I remembered his name correctly, but I believe he had a real big hand on a lot of the electronic music in Halo 3 onwards.
The Reach stuff and ODST stuff from that is just,
Stan Lepard, I think he was around since
peace.
I think he first got involved in Halo 2, but he started, I think, just doing orchestration. But if you go to his SoundCloud account, which is actually still active at the moment, he's uploaded a whole bunch of sketches of old music he worked on for Halo Reach.
Oh shit!
And I think it's a really hard thing to accomplish. I think any musician or a composer would probably agree with me on this, but it is really hard to, I think, pull off a successful fusion of, just kinds of music and genres of music just across the world from anywhere and everywhere. And Halo is unique in being one of the few franchises that managed to do that and really make it work in a way that you hear something from some of the early Halo games, and probably 9 out of 10 you'll immediately know that's Halo. That's probably one of the most special things about that series, is that a lot of the presentation, especially early on, was very central to that game, and that stuff was identifiable. You didn't have to be a gamer. You could be anyone, and there's a really good chance you'd see or hear something and you'd recognize that was Halo.
It's like that piano key. You hear the piano key and instantly you think, that's it.
Yeah, that E.
Instantly
and then
it's Halo.
you just know, yeah.
It's awesome.
Because the other thing as well that I think contributes a lot to it is, of course, like the instruments themselves that Marty and Michael and others used. And I know that you've got quite a thorough collection of old synths and stuff, like the Roland 6, is it XV5080, and like I think it's the Emu Proteus, and like a bunch of those.
Bang on the mark.
Yeah, like how long did it take you to assemble all of that and to like figure out exactly what instruments that they used back then? Because I imagine it would have been a lot of trial and error and listening to different synths, and perhaps even consulting with Marty and Michael and others.
It's been a pretty big process. My kind of
still ongoing, isn't it?
Oh, it is a great journey in the most literal sense. It's not even halfway across the, it's also going to depend on whether the project at the moment, the focus has just been Halo CE and Halo 2. Because, to me, those two soundtracks, growing up with those two games have been very integral to, I think, my personal development and kind of like my career aspirations, and knowing what I wanted to do and stuff growing up as a kid and all that kind of thing. And so a lot of the stuff I do in Halo is, partially because those series or those games have had a really big influence on me growing up. And it's kind of, I guess in a way, my way of both trying to get a greater understanding of like, what the process or the thinking space was of, kind of all that music and stuff that was what I loved growing up. And also kind of giving back in a sort of way to like the Halo community, at least with Odyssey, which is like kind of the whole grand project thing. Part of Project Odyssey was me wanting to do a new high quality resource of, well, we're going to, Halo soundtrack is awesome and it's much higher quality in the soundtrack compared to what you had in the game files. I want to bring that quality treatment across the entire soundtrack, including what wasn't on the soundtrack. And so Odyssey has been, going through, figuring out how all the stuff came together, what the equipment was, so that eventually this can all kind of be released as essentially one giant open source modders resource for the community to be able to kind of, pick apart all these different pieces of how the Halo stuff was made. Part of Odyssey includes full documentation on all of the hardware and sounds that have been found, and basically the idea at the end goal is it's gonna release with all of the source files necessary to recreate the Halo soundtrack as close as possible as I can make it, along with a recipe book on basically what makes it sound like Halo and giving you the information you would need to, make remixes or extensions or modifications. A big part of this was actually because I was playing Halo Custom Edition maps, and I was like, I really love Undercover of Night. This is like the 53rd custom mission I've heard the exact same version of Undercover of Night in. It would be really cool if there was anything that was different about it. Like, it just, the drums were kind of different, or there was like an extra layer of strings in there, or there was something to like spice it up a little. And so part of Odyssey is giving you all the, basically all the resources you need to recreate the soundtrack as close as possible. And then from there, you can take those resources and make your own additions or extensions or iterations, kind of in a similar way to how Digsite is making all of these pre-release assets available. It's sort of doing a similar thing for music. And so my hope was that with this information, future community content could have more kind of music or diverse sound stuff that would have a little bit more variety in there, while also being of a really nice quality level that doesn't feel so much like you're playing custom content and feels much more like it was really well crafted together. It's been a really cool personal journey for me. I would like to think I have gotten better at music production over the last, what are we going on, like 4 years now? So, it's been really funny to listen to some of the stuff I did in 2019, where I'm like, oh, hey guys, here's this recreation of gun pointed at the head of the universe. And I listen to it now and I'm like, oh, my sweet summer child, that sounds nothing like gun pointed at the head of the universe. I had no idea back then. I thought it was great. But, for me personally, it's been cool as a journey to embark on, where I've been able to look back at where I was a year ago or 2 years ago and see how much I've evolved myself along with the general project. Since it started, it's not just me anymore. There's been a few people that have come and gone. But at the moment, I have Bowie, who's also another fellow Australian.
Based.
Yep. He's pretty awesome. And Owen Spence, who he works on a lot of projects in the Destiny music community. So he's been pretty centrally involved with a lot of that stuff. And I think he's going to be great because the plan is that along with a lot of the source files, we're going to have like some orchestration material, like sheet music and a bunch of other stuff as well with some of the Odyssey stuff that's going out. So he's going to be a big help in that. Really, there's going to be a lot of it, but it's been a really cool project to start to figure out a lot of that stuff from, some of the authors of music that have been my personal favorite since I grew up. And, kind of work on that as a personal project alongside all of my other kind of music endeavors, and always have that as a nice kind of frame of reference to come back to and, continue working on this giant, big, familiar project. It's been really cool. It's been really expensive too. I did a tally up on some of the hardware that I've acquired on Odyssey, and I think the running cost so far is about $4,500 US.
Oh, yikes. Yeah.
Odyssey has always been and will continue to be kind of a free passion project, partially because it's legally required to be so, I'm pretty sure. And I would feel weird about asking for donations on that kind of stuff because there's no time frame on this. It's just I work on it when I work on it.
If you want to donate, buy Neo's music on bandcamp.com.
Redbook.
Yes.
Buy Redbook.
Or the Millennium OST. Yeah,
but no, it's been a really big endeavor. And I think part of that as well is making this information available so that, Lord forbid, other people that want to do this kind of thing won't have to spend as much money as I had to spend, because I can tell you exactly what you need to get whatever you want, and then you're only going to have to get that stuff.
Yeah.
I could go into tangents about a lot of this, but with Halo 1 especially, a lot of what I think is the central character and unique sound to Halo 1 alone largely comes from a lot of the hardware synthesizers that were used at the time, which were the industry standard in the 1990s. This is actually quite funny. This has kind of been an intertwining thing a lot. John's also a fan of this, but there's a composer, Kenji Kawai, who's a Japanese artist, and he's done music on a lot of titles from the Ghost in the Shell movie. I think we were just talking about it wasn't Jinro, it was Death Note. He did some of the music for the Death Note anime adaptation.
Pat Labor, if you guys know what that is.
Pat Labor is a series that I think if people watch it, they'll notice there's possibly some visual inspiration that might have come from that series, but largely and completely by coincidence, a lot of the music in Pat Labor uses some of the same hardware, and so if you listen to a lot of the music from the Pat Labor films, you'll probably notice immediately that some of the percussion is the exact same thing as what was used in Halo 1, which completely comes down to the hardware. And so there's this interesting fusion of the sound where obviously what something sounds like in one part comes from the composer. It always will, because the composer, whoever writes the music, is imbuing their own character on it. But the kind of the part that is maybe sometimes overlooked a little bit is it also comes down to the equipment they use. And so it's really interesting with a lot of that Halo stuff, and going back to all of this 90s gear, there's all of these things that had this very certain sound to them that's never really been available in software form. And so the only way to get those sounds again is to actually go and physically buy the same hardware that was used at the time. It's been really cool because on one hand, it gives me access to a whole bunch of sounds that no one else really uses these days. And so it kind of stands out now because it has this because it continues to have this very particular sound to it. At the same time, if you do want to make something like the Halo 1 sound specifically, you have to go get all this equipment.
Yeah,
it breaks down.
prohibitive.
It's vintage. It's like 25 years old. Man, some of that shit is expensive. I've had this keyboard, which I bought earlier this year, a Kurzweil 2600. This thing is like very moody. It's very faulty. I prayed it would hold together just enough for me to finish doing the soundtrack for Crash Site. It held together exactly just enough for me to finish doing the soundtrack for Crash Site, and it's actually broken again.
Oh no!
I spent a lot of money to get that thing, and I have to spend a lot more to get it fixed. And so that's
It's the best
that is the
paperweight.
downside. It's the most like expensive thing I own, and it's a goddamn paperweight half the time, which is awesome. It sounds amazing, but that's one of the challenges of doing a project like this is it's entirely dependent on all of this old equipment, which you can't get new anymore. And so that's probably the biggest challenge in Odyssey, is working with all of this old stuff. Because I do a lot of it out of pocket, that's it's really hard to make that a priority of something where it's like, even if the assets were available, I can't necessarily get something fixed like immediately. So that's also another reason why the project has taken as long as it's taken. A lot of the stuff breaks down. Half the equipment I use on Odyssey doesn't fully work correctly, and I can't take advantage of it in the maximum capabilities that hardware offers. But one day the project will be available and out and cool, and so I'm looking forward to people being able to dig through all these assets. And much in the same way I think we got to get an insight into the processes of a lot of the development for Bungie stuff on Digsite, my hope is that having these assets available for Odyssey will allow people to kind of dig through and gain a new understanding of some of Halo's music on a much deeper level that's never really been available before, because none of these assets have been available before.
Yeah. So you too can pay $10,000 for a synth. Straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I don't know what it's like in Australia. None of that equipment was manufactured in New Zealand. So it's really nice living on an island in the middle of bumfuck nowhere where I have to pay
Yikes.
like 3 times the amount of whatever I buy in shipping fees in addition to whatever it would normally cost. So
Not good.
if you live in the United States, congratulations. You can probably do what I did for like a third of the price.
God, I love being American.
But, yeah.
Oh man.
I know a lot of the Roland stuff you can get from Japan, but it's still pretty steep on postage, which is
It's pretty big. It's pretty big. Now that's kind of a thing of when I started doing this, a lot of that gear was actually cheaper than it is now. Working with a lot of this whole kind of like vintage hardware thing. Now it's always been a thing, but especially in the last 5 years, I think a lot of kind of, modern musicians have sort of figured out that secret a little more of, oh, hey, there's all this really old gear that sounds fucking awesome. And it's like super cheap. And then YouTubers started covering it. And now the price is like skyrocketed for all of it again.
Well, it's because
So,
everyone got the
those
YouTube
YouTuber
City Pop mix.
bastards. Fucking
Yeah.
YouTubers. Am I
You
right?
know what?
God damn it.
I blame City Pop. It is the
It's
fault of City Pop music.
YouTube like
YouTube
algorithm
recommendation.
recommendation of fucking like Japanese city pop from the 80s.
No,
That's
straight
what
up.
happened.
So that's been a pretty fun thing. But yeah, some of the stuff that's used on Odyssey, there exist a few software alternatives. I won't go into the whole specifics of it because it's some real just like, only audiophiles are going to care about this kind of shit. But there's a lot of cases where if there are any official software alternatives, if they exist, they aren't one-to-one accurate to the way that things may have worked in the hardware domain. And so a big part of Odyssey is accuracy and, the whole preservation angle. So it's important to me personally to get the hardware for a lot of this. And in some cases, the hardware is actually the only way to get that sound, because if there is an alternative, you can tell it's different when you listen to it, and it won't work. There's no substitute. But once this documentation's all finished and available and out there, I plan to do a whole intricate documentation of, well, here's the way it was done properly, and here are all of the available alternatives that can get you reasonably close. So, do not worry, you won't have to spend as much as I did on this project. But yeah, so that's been a pretty fun endeavor, if I do say so.
I just want to ask about your experience, for the both of you, your experience working with 343, or at least communicating with them for Digsite. How has that been? Have they been, very approachable when it comes to asking for stuff? Or, yeah, I'm just very curious to hear how hands-on they are with all of this.
Well, the person that we work most directly with is Kenneth Peters, who's like one of the, if I remember his role specifically correctly,
The lead franchise writer?
Yeah,
Oh, right, okay.
lead franchise writer. And he's been incredibly patient, helpful, all the above. He kickstarted this project out of like his own like passion for the franchise. Like all the 343 employees who are involved with Digsite are doing this on their free time,
Right.
not on the clock.
It's like passion project.
So,
yeah. Right.
yeah.
We don't get paid. They don't get paid. It's a great time.
Yep. No one's
I should be
paid for
paying
it.
you guys for
Yeah.
this, honestly. Like,
Doing it off. I agree, honestly.
Yeah.
343, hire this man. Unironically.
I would say working with like him specifically and some of the other like more direct contacts at 343 has been a wonderful, blissful experience. I don't think we could go into much more detail beyond that, but that's kind of the whole bit
Yeah.
where it's like
No,
the
that's
people
it.
we work with directly, super communicative,
Yeah.
very great. I love it. It's just the fact that
The 343 people we work with are actually super awesome.
yeah, it's just the fact that we're dealing with a big company with a lot of moving parts.
yeah. No, that makes sense, to be honest. Yeah.
We're still like community members. We're not necessarily employees at 343, so it's not as direct as that. But
Yeah, we aren't
Yeah.
involved on MCC's development directly, and ultimately the pace and speed of the whole thing, I guess, we have to keep this in mind when we work on it, but it's not just about us. The whole thing is bigger than kind of any one group of people. And so when it moves forward, that kind of only happens when sort of everyone involved is ready for that to be so, and there's more people than just us working on all of this. So pacing can be an interesting challenge sometimes.
Yeah, full on. But I mean, that's, once again, this is why 343 should be, I personally think, Nerd and Laper agree, but, hiring you guys would go a long way, or at least give you guys something for your time. I know you guys said it's probably not possible, but, I think it would just go a very, very long way as a thanks for what you guys do,
Well, I'm open to offers. You can reach
Put 'em
me.
through.
by,
we are open to offers.
You can Google my name, and I'm probably the only person that shows up. So I am contactable if need be.
Fuck, I'm named John.
Haha, get wrecked.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, Mr. Matrix.
Mm-hmm. But no. Yeah. At least for when we do get to directly kind of work with all the assets and all the production stuff on Digsite, for the most part, it's been really awesome. And the opportunity itself alone is great, but actually getting to work with all the people we've had the ability to work with has been a really cool process, I think, for everybody involved. I know there's a lot of people at 343 that really like what we're doing and support our efforts, and so I think it's really cool, for them as well, and the people that work on Halo, to see that there are a group of people that have the ability and time to work on something like this and bring a lot of that stuff to fruition that a lot of other people probably want to see as well. Ultimately, I think I would like to think at the end of the day, everyone gets to be really happy with all the stuff that we get to work on and make available to the whole community, basically.
I would say Digsite has actually done a fair bit, and I don't think it'll be recognized by a lot of people, but it's done a lot for Halo's reputation, I think, almost. At least among fans. I think it shows that there is, in some way, 343 is doing something for the legacy of Halo, and shows that they actually care, and they're trying to bring back this content. Because they didn't, to be honest, they didn't need to do this. But they chose to do this.
Well, it's also pretty unprecedented. Like, I can't really think of a single example of like what literally has happened with the Digsite project happening across any other game. So
it's definitely a pretty rare spoken thing. I don't know whether this is kind of a greater thing for 343 or for everyone outside, but I think Digsite is a really nice contrast to, I think there's probably this kind of external perspective, I want to say, that a lot of what has happened after Bungie on Halo is that things have been changed for the sake of change, or there's been kind of an intention to kind of make a distinct difference in identity versus what Halo was previously. And I think Digsite has been a really cool opportunity to bring some of that back in and incorporate everything together and show, hey, we're moving forward in new directions, but we aren't necessarily leaving the old behind. We've got something for everybody. And I think it's a really cool opportunity to both, I think expand what Halo means and is to more people and more audiences, and still have something for everyone, including embracing, fans and the communities that have already been there. Yeah, exactly.
Which, like, in the most literal of senses, it is revisiting, like, what made Halo into Halo.
And it's also really cool because for a lot of new people that are coming into Halo, Halo's been around for, over 20 years at this point. So it's a great way for, I don't know about you guys, but John and I, we obviously started playing Halo as kids, and there's probably a lot more younger people that are, coming into the audiences for Halo. And so stuff like Digsite is a kind of a great history piece, to show people like, hey, here's some of the stuff from way back when that whole other audiences of people were into. And ultimately it's more content for everybody to enjoy. It would be even cooler if they brought that to Xbox, which would be pretty...
Yes. Wink, wink.
Xbox.
It would be very cool.
Yeah.
It would be very, very, very cool.
It would be very awesome. Yes. But
you might have to hire some people.
Yes.
I think it goes a long... I think it goes a really long way, when you have something like a property that's been going for so long, to have projects like these that, maybe are kind of going out of the way a little bit, but going that extra effort to, kind of work on ways to have projects or franchises like this kind of have a much bigger community audience and appeal to more people and include more people and more just like history, and really have more content available to like everyone. In my eyes, that's only a good thing, especially in the digital age like we are now. There's not really an excuse for information or things to be lost to time anymore. I think it is a really good thing to be going the extra distance to make more information available to everybody. That's my take on it, but I think it's a pretty good take to go with.
And I think it also introduces Halo modding to a lot of people. Obviously, Halo historically, Xbox franchise modding has existed, like there's been custom edition, but that was never the predominant way it was enjoyed.
If you told me that like 15 years ago, I would have disagreed with you, because I would have been on custom edition and only been playing custom edition. There's a giant community on custom edition that like did get kind of ignored, but yeah, no, it has been a predominantly Xbox platform thing for obvious reasons. Like Halo is born on Xbox by all means. So
I think, funnily enough, probably one of the greatest examples of, sort of what I'm talking about with preservation is you look at something like the Doom franchise, and, the original Doom games pretty much get as much treatment and love and, kind of support as the new Doom games. I mean, you have, kind of the recent 2020 ports of Doom 1 and 2, and, they've all come out again on consoles, and including on the console versions, they have like integrated support to, take all this community content and some of the best things that have been made for Doom and make that available to more people through like an official means to play that. And, I think that's really cool to have both kind of like your history or, sort of previous versions coexisting with sort of new stuff that you make. And just, you make all of it available to everyone, and there's just more stuff to enjoy. Like everybody wins. So I think that's a really cool direction to go in.
And I think a direction that would be good for building rapport with the fans, What other cool stuff did you see in Digsite, or what other cool stuff from Digsite do you want to talk about?
Yeah, there's some stuff that we imagine is probably under NDA or can't be discussed. So, little
Skirt around
little
it.
hints
No.
or teasers, and
Halo 3, Halo Reach, all that stuff's cool.
But no, there's been some really cool stuff behind the scenes, I think.
Later games will have some cool stuff. And then there's stuff that's also already known by people that we've more recently found, like the E3 2000 stuff for Halo 1. Or the
E3 2006.
Or the stuff that everyone else has been like never shutting up about, the Halo 2 E3 demo.
Yes.
That will be coming.
Can't wait. Yeah.
Fuck, we love that shit.
It's neat.
A lot of the E3 stuff is made to be played a certain way. It all gets kind of rehearsed and stuff. The idea with something like an E3 demo is you'd be trying to convey to the audience, like, the most optimal kind of ideal, flashy, cool sort of, vertical slice or snippet of what you might have in Halo.
Vertical slice is the way to put it. It is a really cool, neat, scripted, linear vertical slice that you go through. Like, what is in the E3 demo that you already saw is basically there.
I was gonna tie back to this with Crash Site, which is really funny because, there's a lot of things that are scripted in Crash Site, and one of the funniest things to see, well, it's funny as an observer, and it's a little annoying as a designer, is that ultimately, it is difficult to 100% account for people that are going to play the game a different way than you intended.
I kind of love it, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's really cool. I like games that basically, they'll give you a bunch of tools or a sandbox, but it's up to you to decide how you want to play, and they may not account for certain playstyles, but they generally won't try to stop you from certain playstyles, and you have that freedom to experiment.
I should probably mention this with, like, the Halo 2 E3 demo. It's not that it's, like, the worst thing ever. It's just, like... So, we were able to make the mission Crash Site off of, like, the Spasm test level for Halo 1. And that was kind of, like, half happy accident, half us actually just designing a mission, like, semi-well, I would like to think. But the test map Spasm was the map that got used for, like, the Macworld demo, like the little pre-scripted little cutscene that played after Steve Jobs said hello and all that good stuff, right? And what ended up happening with Crash Site is we basically had a nice big open test map with a lot of varied terrain that we could do stuff with, and we could make any kind of open-ended level we wanted, right? And that was really good. When I see the Halo 2 E3 demo, and when I get to, like, kind of mess around with it, I kind of just see the Halo 2 E3 demo and not much more. Like, there is still some extra geometry that people didn't get to see, like they can go off the rails and go, wow, I get to look at an untextured building or something, right? But it's not like, at least with Spasm, I'm not saying this just because I also have, like, a CE bias or anything, but, like, the test map for Halo 1 was just actually, like, kind of big. Like, it is a pretty big, pretty varied terrain, and I think that honestly is what made it, like, a pretty good test map on the same kind of grounds that, like, like Gary's mod Flatgrass is a cool test map kind of deal. Like, it works as, like, a nice little sandbox map. what would they be testing if you're like a Bungie dev? Like, oh, I want to get like the Warthog physics to be tuned right. I want to maybe test a boat. I want to be jumping around, running around, because Halo 1 used to be more like tribes versus like what it is now, right? And so what ends up happening is the test map is this super mountainous, super like hilly, like multiple island biome map that has water and all this other stuff, like an interior and an exterior, a bunch of vehicle paths, etc. And so you get like a really good fun mix of a bunch of stuff. Besides the Halo 2 E3 demo, I can even mention this with like the like E3 2000 demo with Halo 1, because that one too, like that map, like when I looked at that version of the map, that one, you get into the Forerunner building on that, and all the rooms that you see in like the original like E3 trailer, like that little cutscene, that's pretty much what you get. There's not anything else. There is literally nothing else there. There's no like hidden surprises, nothing like that, right? So if I wanted to like make something with like the E3 2000 map, like we've been having these discussions back and forth, right? Like, I think the two best options are either you make like a little pantomime mission where you basically recreate the demo verbatim, kind of like what the Halo 2 E3 demo is going to be like, right? Or you maybe like try to recreate the cutscene as best as you can, but that's pretty tedious and time consuming. So you have your options, but like Spasm turning into Crash Site was very, very like right map, right time, right circumstances. So
I think we got really lucky. Yeah, I genuinely think we got pretty lucky with everything aligning to, you know, work as well as it did and be as successful as it was.
Yeah, it worked better than I think anyone imagined, I think.
I think it's definitely to say, I mean, you know, the map BSP already existed, and kind of there was a lot we were able to really work well with when we designed things like some of the encounters. I think it's also, you know, it's probably arguably also a testament to, well, having the right tools to start with also is actually a pretty significant deal. Like, we had a lot of the right stuff we needed to make something that was really good. I was the one that went way above and beyond and did all the really stupid shit that we didn't really need, but I thought it would be cool, and subsequently kept breaking the mission scripts and had to fix it like 68 times.
It was cool, at least.
It was cool. Crash Site was one of the best like new Halo missions that we've had in years. Obviously, you're restoring the old Halo content through Digsite, and it did feel very Halo, you know, it had the ethos of Halo. How do you think you pulled that off?
I guess I'll start. Since it coincides directly with the start of the mission, I'm sure should he ever see this, I think Joe will like this answer. I think it's good to start with a bang. You know, I think a lot of cool quintessential Halo missions have really memorable opening cutscenes that throw you right into it. So that was actually one of my favorite things to work on, was making it so basically right from the get-go, you get thrown into the middle of it with like a nice 10-second shot that goes from like cool, vague, I don't know, metaphor of new sun or something, and then just like, oh yeah, grunt runs past, everything runs past, holy shit, it's go time.
Like all the audio comes in, everything like you
comes
basically
in all at once.
immediately see, oh, map's fucking huge, let's fucking go.
Yeah, it was really cool getting to see a lot of, I guess, kind of player reception and watching some gameplay and seeing ones where, you know, it had like the reactions, and like almost every time just seeing everyone be like, Deca Millennium, oh, interesting, and then they see the Pelicans fly past and they're like, oh, holy shit, oh, all right, we're getting right into it, cool, let's fucking go. Then it goes
the
in.
cutscene was a good choice for being such a last-minute addition, honestly.
I was soy-facing.
But yeah, so that's pretty much how that kicks off, and then everyone's like, all right, let's go, and then, you know, guy fucking pulls out the SMG right afterwards, and then you know there's more to this. There's more than what you see at the front page.
Well, yeah, like the moment that the mission starts up, I'm really happy with the way that we were able to integrate the Digsite remastered, remixed like pre-release content, because for people who are familiar with Halo 1, it immediately feels fresh. Like just right off the bat, they're seeing a new like level geo that they've never gotten to like see properly, maybe just through some shitty 240p video from like Macworld back in the day. And
Or
then
Marcus Leto's Twitter.
Marcus Leto's like fucking Twitter compressed videos or some shit. And then moment that the gameplay starts up, they're immediately like, okay, cool, I got a new weapon, and bam, mission starts. Like you're just right in the action. Enemies like immediately start coming at you. So
And then you have this guy that sounds very vaguely like a discount chips Dubbo, just going, Mayday, Mayday! But yeah, that's how it kicks off with a bang.
I think it was very effective as well, that opening cutscene, in the sense that like it parallels like, you know, the second mission of Combat Evolved in a lot of ways, like the crashing ship, and you just kind of thrust immediately into this vast open world to explore and look around. And that's I think that each of the cutscenes were very, very well done, and they had that same kind of not floaty feel, but like a lot of the cutscenes in Combat Evolved tend to have this kind of like gliding camera a lot of the time. Yeah, the swoopy cam, Joe's favorite.
Oh yeah.
I was just wondering, on the note of the cutscenes, how difficult are those to pull together? Because I can't imagine that they're easy when you're working with tools that are X many number of years old.
So that's actually an interesting one. And I guess the answer is, it's a little funny, actually. Well, see, it's kind of a weird mix, because when you figure out how it works, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty straightforward. The issue is that a lot of that wasn't possible for a lot of Halo Custom Edition, because the previous versions of the editing kit, a lot of that functionality was actually broken and it didn't work correctly. John would probably be able to correct me on this, because Crash Site is like my first foray into doing any kind of Halo project beyond literally sound. But for Halo Custom Edition to do stuff using what we call recorded animations, or to do a lot of different functions, you'd actually have to use like community developed tools. The functionality for it that would have been in the internal tools, which are often known as Tool, funnily enough, Sapien and Gorilla. A lot of that functionality in the previous PC versions of Halo didn't actually work correctly or was incomplete.
Custom Edition, we had modding tools back in the day. They were, to say a bit limited is a little bit of a understatement. Like, for example, everyone knows that Custom Edition had like at this point, we're almost like 20 years.
They had that Randy touch.
Oh, well, yeah, we had the Gearbox fun port stuff that was just dog shit. But regarding the actual Custom Edition tools, they were really cool. They were limited. Single player wasn't like initially provided by the tools. Like that was like community patched in pretty much. So most of the abilities that Custom Edition modders had before Master Chief Collection came out with its mod tool suite were basically limited as if you stuck to just what tools Gearbox provided. And if you used community tools, there were hacks and workarounds around like a lot of stuff, but you were using antiquated like 3ds Max scripts and a whole bunch of other fun hacks to get things done. So it was worse before. Now, I wouldn't say it's bad, it's just antiquated, because when it comes to these old tools, they don't have a lot of modern conveniences. They don't have like 20 years of hard use to like inform the kind of changes to make workflows nice and easy to use. But like someone had to do this like at Bungie, like again, like 20 years ago, like someone had to sit with these tools, make all the cutscenes, which to be fair, that someone is Joe Staten, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
fuck him, he can deal with it.
Yeah, like someone had to deal with this all day. This stuff works well enough for someone to work with on an everyday basis, but it's just not as convenient as like, let's say Unreal's like cinematic tools. Unreal's cinematic tools are beautiful and easy to use. Blender's like animation tools are, at least now, pretty good and easy to use, and you have a bunch of resources for it. When it comes to any of the Halo games, even on Master Chief Collection, you end up with this thing where the tools are straightforward and make sense, but you don't have the most documentation. and you're kind of limited to community help and just troubleshooting on your own. And that's kind of where the difficulty comes in. So.
Oh, but like when 343 took over Halo, I think there was a quote from Bonnie Ross where she said something like, Halo, it's a very technical, engineering-focused engine, which when you think about it doesn't make sense because literally every game engine is focused on engineering.
Agree with
but I
that,
get what
though.
she means.
It
was like lacking in tools, like lacking in usability.
It sort of depends on how you're looking at it.
I don't agree with the context, but like what she meant by like engineering mindset is like if I were to explain the Halo tools to someone who doesn't do game dev, it's the equivalent of using like Microsoft Excel over say like Unreal Engine. You just make what you want without thinking about it. Like it's very artist driven.
The Halo tools are very I guess instructive, not in the sense of they come with instructions, because they don't. But this I haven't personally worked with any of the newer games beyond sort of Halo 2, but at least going back as far as CE, the big thing, which is, I mean, this is something that carried across to, you know, games before like Doom and such as well, but, you know, the tools they used for the time were perfectly adequate at doing what needed to be done, but that's how it works. The tools were developed to do exactly only the functions they needed them to do. And so, you know, if you try to do anything that is a bit beyond what might have been tried at the time, you know, sometimes you'll have to figure out, you're on your own in terms of figuring out workarounds or you know, how do I like solve this challenge? You have to just try different things to get it to work.
Whereas like Unreal's designed to do like literally anything.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you use the Halo engine to make something that wasn't a first-person shooter. It's like, you might be able to do that, but all the Halo tech was made for doing one thing really, really well, and that's making Halo games. You could make another game, but you're gonna be on your own a little bit.
I can throw some wrenches into that argument, though, because if we're talking about like the actual original Halo engine, not how it is now, because now we have it with like the kind of limited, and I'm not saying limited as in like they are not powerful, but like we have mod tools. We don't have like original source code or anything like that. Halo's original engine was pretty extendable, and if you want to go into the history of it, there were really fun prototypes like that one party game, what was it, Hail to the Chimp, right? So you can make a lot of things that were not Halo.
Well, that wasn't even
Halo's
prototype,
engine.
that was like a full game, right?
Well, they made, it was like, it never came out. It got most of the way there.
Oh,
I
really?
think it's like an alpha build or something.
There was
like,
Stubbs
I don't think
the
it ever,
Zombie as well.
Stubbs the Zombie actually came out, and that was like a separate, like, full featured game, which also is still not Halo, right? But the way that the whole, because Halo has this thing called a tag system, I don't want to get into the details of it, but like I mentioned the Excel comparison earlier. The reason why I bring that up is you don't necessarily need to be like a programmer to use Excel, but you can basically play with a limited set of functions to do really, really complex actions. Like a regular person who messes around with Excel is maybe going to go in, deal with each entry individually, spend a lot of time doing tedious stuff, right? Someone who knows what they're doing with Excel can like put in like math functions and automate like half the stuff they want to do, like functionality wise with Excel, and have a very merry time. It's kind of engineer driven in that sense, where like I wouldn't say it's engineer driven where it's like you basically need to know C++ in order to get anything done with Halo. It's engineer driven in the fact that like, are you okay with staring at like blank fields that you have to enter numbers or string entries into? If so, you can use Halo's engine and get pretty decent results. Unlike something like Unreal, where they spent probably like $1 billion at this point on making tools tailored to like people in the film industry or people who are doing architecture visualization. Like artist-driven tools, in my opinion, as someone who has to do 3D art, is like with Unreal, if I want to make a test for a level, it has a brush-based system. I can just draw some primitives in Unreal without having to go into any other application and just basically make a bare minimum environment purely just in Unreal without having to touch a single other thing outside of Unreal. Halo, you cannot do that. and you have to bring in your own art assets and data in that sort of sense. But the way that you can
can't even build
manipulate the
maps
data
in the engine at all. Like it has to be built. That's like in the 3D modeling software.
Yeah, no, it has to be done externally with like your 3D art suite, whatever it is, whether it's like 3ds Max, Maya, or Blender nowadays. But like, it's the good kind of engineering driven though, because it is hard for people who are used to like modern workflows with like Unity and Unreal. But for anyone who's like interested in modding, I think it's pretty easy to pick up, because when you look at the way that Halo sets stuff up, it basically gives you a sandbox of things to play with, because we already have all the assets that were made for the games, right? And you can just see how those assets were set up, and because none of it is like actual like code, it's like all these like self-contained things that you can deal with tools. You can just kind of play around with parameters for AI in the most like vague designer. Like I wouldn't actually say it's engineer driven. It's more like designer driven tools more than anything. That's the way I would put it. Because if I want to like make a new gun in Halo, I'm not having to think of like any of the code logic that goes into it, but I can just think of it purely on like a balancing stats like mindset. Like, what is the accuracy spread over time? How much damage per shot does it do? How many shots does it actually, like, how many rounds does it take per shot? That kind of stuff, right? That's the way that, like, Halo's overarching, like, logic kind of works. And that's really design driven, pretty much, rather than engineering or artist.
You have all these systems in place that are, like, ready to go. And it's basically just figuring out how you want to use those systems to accomplish whatever you're trying to build effectively.
That's one thing that's fun about it. Like you basically have kind of a whole game there already that's kind of built, like a whole retail game. And what you have to do with it is you can take any of those elements and basically remix them any way you want. And you can basically go in, look at how everything's built and just take after that, like copy it.
Well, that's the great thing, kind of going back a little bit to like the cinematics and stuff, is because a lot of those tools weren't documented, you know, especially the tools where I was saying that, you know, there's a bunch of stuff where the functionality wasn't available before to the public until the new tool updates with MCC have actually restored everything. And so like nothing crashes anymore for the most part compared to the custom edition tools. And so there's all these extra functions that were always there, but we've only just been able to use them to do stuff like with cinematics and such. And with a lot of things like that, and I think a lot of our wider design, one of the best resources for figuring out how we can do things is to open up the source data for the original campaign levels that just come with the toolkit. And you can literally just verbatim just see how the original designers made everything. And from there, you can figure out, okay, here's how they did it, here's how that works. And then it also gives you kind of an understanding of where can I experiment or try new things that kind of extend whatever was done before with the existing stuff. And like, how can I play with this and make something that's a little different or a little new, or, you know, figure out other ways to kind of accomplish interesting, I guess, mission design.
I do want to ask, so about making Crash Site, so you're talking about the work that went into it. I want to ask about the technical aspects of how you actually made it. What was it like making it? Like maybe.
That one's going to be kind of interesting because, so the fun thing with Crash Site is...
Like you had HUD stuff, right?
Oh, I mean, there's tons of stuff everywhere, which is great, actually, because the new MCC update broke a lot of stuff. And so super last minute, I had to actually change or remove how a lot of stuff worked. There are more than a couple of things that actually kind of got cut from Crash Site, or I would like to integrate them back in the future, just because we have to basically just rethink our approach to how we would have done it.
Crash Site, Digsite.
With the new update and things like that. Yeah, literally, Crash Site, Digsite. But I did actually add it together earlier because I was like, I thought some folks might find this interesting. All of the scripting on Crash Site added together is 152,059 characters, or 4,000 lines of script, basically. So it is large. I will say that.
For reference, like a Halo 1 level is like about 2,000 lines of script.
Let me open up what have we got? C40. Okay, so 2 Betrayals is 2,600 lines of code.
See, I
And then
wasn't
Crash
that
Site
far
is
off, just like
4,000.
600.
Yep. So quite a bit. A lot of trial and error. Debugging or doing scripting stuff for Halo is really fun because basically, give or take, making like fun, teleport scripts to like quickly fast track you to something. You basically have to just replay the mission every time you want to test something. And so a lot of Crash Site's development for me on the scripting side is I change a value, I have to play through the mission for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I see something's wrong, and then I have to change it, fix it, check if I fixed it. Turns out I didn't fix it, and I have to repeat that about 70 times.
See, I had the simpler debugging process because I did like the initial encounter design for Crash Site and everything. And when I was setting stuff up, if something didn't work, the AI was just fucking brain dead and didn't do anything. So I figured out it didn't work immediately and would have to spend like 50 minutes trial and error, like just figuring it out. Neo gets to all the fun stuff where it's like he does like a scripted conversation where 2 Marines talk to each other. And if you just interrupt them, depending on how they like are talking to each other or when they're talking to each other, you might just break their scripting and all that kind of stuff. So, and that would just pile on to a bunch of other stuff. So Neo got the fun troubleshooting. I got the easy stuff.
Are there any other mods you guys recommend?
Oh, well, aren't you so lucky, Shredded Nerd? Because if you follow the Dogbrain Ludus Twitter or X account,
Follow him on X.
Yeah, follow me on X, guys.
Oh,
Yeah. I think I had like a little tiny short list of a few mods that some of them are known by more people, some of them are less known, but like these were the kind of mods that I was really looking forward to back when the idea of Halo 3 on PC was just like a glimmer of an idea. Like, back in the custom edition days, we never thought it was going to happen because it didn't happen until like now, And so stuff like Halo 3 Combat Evolved, the Kashira mod, that shit's pretty fun. Like, it's a remake of Halo 1 and Halo 3. I'm a Halo 1 purist, but you know what? Some people would like the Halo 3 modernizations, and it's really cool to see like a singular person effort be so polished in the Halo 3 engine and like really shows what like graphically can be done. But there's a person on the workshop. He goes by the username of Skorly, like Skorly, and he has been making some of the best single player content you can play for Halo right now on like the workshop. He's been making a bunch of Halo 3 like custom campaign missions, and they are completely original level layouts and all that kind of stuff. He has his own like tuned sandbox, which I kind of feel mixed on, but he has been releasing vanilla versions of the maps. So I think his newest one doesn't have the vanilla version quite yet, but give it some time. He'll make like a Halo 3 vanilla version if you're that like purist about the sandbox, right? But the point being is these are like short, like maybe 30-minute long, just solidly put together Halo 3 missions.
John and I had a great time playing through. It was Kill Billis, right? That was
that was the
played.
Most recent one. Yeah.
Yeah, we played through that together for the first time, and that was honestly a blast.
Yeah, like again, you can go on Workshop. He has like, what is it, like 5 missions at this point done. So it's like, some people
6.
might know him for his first mission. It was like saving Sergeant Johnson.
Yeah.
So he started with that, but he's only been getting better since. Again, just it's some of the best Halo 3 custom content you can probably play right now. Like the art's not the best, but it's like, it's serviceable. The level design's solid enough. It's just an all-around fun time.
You feel the soul. Speaking of soul, Halo New Covenant.
Yeah, Halo New Covenant's really fun. I adore it. It has like some rough edges, but Halo 3 New Covenant is quite literally one guy basically goes, yeah, I don't really care for Halo 4. I'm going to make my Halo 4. it's gonna be like Halo 3 and shit. It's gonna just continue off of Halo 3 and be like epic, dude.
I love that.
And
Halo 3 too.
yeah, no, and it has that. And like the first level is kind of honestly the worst one of the bunch, but the first level, yeah, like I think it was like the guy's first single player map ever, so I can cut him some slack. It just reuses like Halo 2 geometry, but I knew it was something special because the first level for it, like spoiler alert, it will, besides supporting co-op, it has the balls to kill off Shipmaster in the end of the first level. And like we're off to a fucking start, dude. He has the balls to get rid of. He has the balls to do that, and he's not inserting his like shitty like weird elite OC or some bullshit like that, right? Like it's Master Chief and the Arbiter all the way. It's Halo 3 2, baby. It's Halo 3 New Covenant.
We ain't fucking around.
Halo 3 Doom.
Nah, fuck that.
Nah.
Fuck Halo 3
Nah.
Doom, dude.
It's just too based.
my
It's
homies
just
hate
too
Halo
That's
based.
Halo
not
3, dude.
original campaign content.
It's not original and it's not well put together.
Oh, that's not true. It's
Bang.
very well put together.
I don't know, man. We were there watching you develop it.
You're
Yeah,
like,
it's based.
you're like fucking Gordon Ramsay if he's spinning all his food.
Going around. I'll spin your food, mate.
You'd like that.
Oh.
Hey, you'd like that.
Now, everybody go check out Shredded Nerds Halo Doom.
Nah, fucking
Project on
don't, dude.
Watch
Don't fucking
Check out the music that you commissioned though. That was good.
Shout out to
Yeah.
LXG Music. She's I mean the number of people that actually actively work with or mod the Halo game engine and also do music, I'm pretty sure is like less than 5. But the number of musicians that are involved in the Halo community is like definitely less than 10. And LXG Music is like the one other composer I know of who is really active with the community at the moment within the Halo stuff and doing a lot of cool projects and shit. And it's really cool to see her work in a lot of continuing Halo projects like Legacies or Shredded Nerds Doom mod.
And the excellent level design and scripting and the art and
Yeah, for like, are you talking about a different level there,
and the
nerd?
lighting how you can see everything so well.
I know. I
It's so
love
moody
John
and atmospheric.
Romero's fucking level design and John Romero's lighting. He's
No,
great.
No,
I love getting jump scared by Jeff the Killer fucking flood infection forms when I
Yeah,
jump
that's
in the
fucking
water.
great.
You
It's
see,
great.
Shredded, how the fuck did you get me to hate John Romero level design? Like, what the fuck?
What do you
Damn,
mean?
bro.
It's just lacking taste. I don't know.
This has just become like a rag on Nerd on his own fucking show.
I don't know, Laper. I see this as a pretty good constructive opportunity.
Constructive criticism.
Well, I will just add, we've been recording for
Yeah,
almost
we've
2.5
already
hours,
covered.
boys.
We'll say goodbye.
Yeah, I've like by this point, you know, I could have sat through at least 7/8 of Oppenheimer. So
Yes. Which is everybody? Are you a Barbie Oppenheimer or Oppenheimer Barbie? What's everyone's
Yeah, what's
fucking
the order?
progression
Well,
on that?
I did do the double feature with my mates. We went in full
Oh,
attire.
yikes.
It was great.
Nice.
I'm still waiting for the IMAX, IMAX Oppenheimer.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's gonna be in like
Watching that on
September.
IMAX would
that'd
be
be
crazy. Goddamn.
Yeah, no, I saw it in the 70 mil, so.
Yeah, I don't even fucking know if we have an IMAX here, which is a bit of a shame. But
Don't you have like one in your whole fucking country?
we have 2 in the entire country, I think.
What
Because we
shame.
did have one here, and then so where I live in Wellington is like on one of the centric fault lines in New Zealand. That shit got fucking destroyed in like 2015 or something like that. So we had an IMAX. We don't have it anymore.
Oh.
Ooh.
But we do have a McDonald's next to where the IMAX used to be.
That's a consolation.
Yeah, you hey, get disappointed, but you get a cheeseburger.
Yeah,
so
yep.
end of the day, it
Big
all
Mac with
all
that,
balances
not
out.
bad.
Anyway, we'll probably close this off. Thanks for watching, guys. This has been Shredded Nerd.
Yeah, I am Neo Tiaika. You can Google search Neo Tiaika and you will either find me or someone else, I guess. I do audio. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yep, I'm John. You're not gonna find me based off that, because it's a pretty, common name. So just look up Dogbrain Ludus and you'll probably find something on like Google or Duck, duck, go, you weirdo.
Shout out to the first project that John and I actually worked together on, which is a feature film called Summer of Fools.
Yeah, if you want something to cringe at, subscribe to Shredded Nerd.
No, everyone's saying bass.
Dude, yeah. Oh, dude, it's so big. I want to watch like 5 fucking parts of Soy Jack lore, dude.
Yeah.
Let's fucking go.
Fucking awesome in Kino. Everyone wants to watch that.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
so hard to edit.
I appreciate. Yeah, good fucking luck is what I'm gonna say.
Well, really, yeah, same thing as always. I never really know what to say at this point. It's like seven podcasts in now, but episodes in. But yeah, no, take a look at these guys. They've done an awesome job, with the Digsite content. Very keen to see what they do in the future. In regards to where to find me, it's just Foot of the Ghost. Otherwise, stay on Shredded Nerd. My man, yeah, he's got the fire content. Let's just say that.
Gotta keep it short and simple, all right? Download fucking Crash Site.
Oh, and buy Decamillennium. Buy Decamillennium.
Buy Deca Millennium.
Please, we don't get paid.
You bastards.
We don't get paid by 343. Please.
Someone hire them.